Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you might be. We're back. It's Tuesday morning.
For more. We're back for more. Anyway, should we add some code? Should we do some code? Do you guys want to do some code? There's no. Otherwise, we can continue talking about random stuff. Okay, so let's visit where we were the last time that we did this thing. So I did a quick tour. I spent an hour trying to get TypeScript to work, and I couldn't get it to work because I screwed up my setup, and I was super tired, and it was 7 p.m. at night. But now we have a working solution. Right now, what you see here is a bare bones kind of thing that it's an API. It's a Node.js API that does nothing other than expose some endpoints. Not using dev containers? No. You mean for Rust? I have no idea what you're talking about. Dev containers? No, I'm not using containers. Okay, so if I were to run this one, npm, oh, you know what? I can run it from Visual Studio Code. I've configured Visual Studio Code. Oh, for VS Code? No, I'm not using it. I am going raw here, native stuff. So I have my VS Code with the launch settings, so I can launch it from here. I have my package.json that manages my scripts and dependencies. I have my tsconfig for TypeScript. Yeah, I suspect though that making dev dependencies much less painful because you just use a container to do everything. But at the same time, I don't want to mess with containers right now. Just keep it light. And if I need to install junk stuff like the last thing, I have a VM on Azure that I spin up. I install all the junk I want, and then if it gets too much stuff, like if I have Node and PHP and Go and Rust and everything else, I just wipe out the VM and start from scratch. I haven't used Docker with WSL, so it might be a good idea to set up a dev environment just to show people how they can do it in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's run the app and see what happens here. So I'm gonna launch it. It should be listening at port 8080 or something, or 8000 once it launches. So yeah, it's listening at port 8000. So let's bring this here and let's navigate to that. So that will be localhost 8000. And right now, at the default endpoint, it exposes the APIs that we want to have. One for storage, one for Cosmos, and one for Cosmos with no parameters, and one for Graph. So it's not secure right now. It doesn't do anything. So the first thing I want to do is add Cosmos support in here. And I do have a Cosmos resource on my Azure portal. So if I go into AZ Fan Demo CM, I have a couple of containers here. I think it's the Volcano container. We used this for the on.NET show last week with Cecil and our very good friend, I forgot his name. Who was with me? Man,
very good friend indeed.
He's a very good friend. Losing my mic. Oh, it's because I'm probably turning around my head and people can't hear me. Man, I've got his image on my. God, his name will come back to me. He's really good, and he knows his stuff. He was in our team, and then he moved on to do DID stuff, right? Is he doing DID now? It's not Matthias. Kyle. Our very good friend Kyle. He is the man. DT he's got a new job?
Yeah, he does.
Ooh, yeah. Nice. Congrats, DT in the cloud. Good morning to you too. We're good. Fellow kids. It's missing. Every time I hear fellow kids, it's missing that meme from skateboard guy. Okay, items, volcanoes. Let's see. Here we got volcano names. These are actual data. So if you ever want to populate or pre-populate Cosmos DB with some sample data, we provide you with a pre-defined, pre-compiled kind of JSON data called volcanoes. It's on GitHub, so you can go and find it. So I uploaded this list, and we have something to play with. Now, for Cosmos to work and allow us to be able to authenticate with it, there are a couple of settings that, did I close down the settings? No, it's here. So let's bring it here and see what we need to do. So for RBAC to work, we need a couple of things. First is a custom RBAC role, because by default it doesn't have predefined roles, and the roles that it has are not particularly good. So you need to find a new one. And I have already done this, so we don't have to go through the exercise, but I do have the code for that. So if you want to see it, I think it's here in one of my notes. So I'll put it on the repo, or I will put it on this code sample so we know what's happening. So let's create a new file called role definition.json. And I use the Azure CLI to do that, but to run it. So this is a role name called my read-only role. It is a custom role, so it's not built into Azure, because Azure RBAC has a number of roles or types of roles. And then assignable scopes, you can say whether you want to assign it to a specific container, or whether you want to assign it to a specific database, or whether you want to assign it to the whole Cosmos DB resource. And here we're using the whole Cosmos DB resource. And in the permissions category or list, we're defining a number of permissions. One is for reading metadata on the database. One is for reading items on the SQL database containers. One is for executing a query, and the other one is for reading a change feed. Therefore, and I copied these from the RBAC permissions when I was following the example. So here they're doing exactly the same thing. As you can see here, I copied this. In effect, this is a read-only role, so it doesn't allow any updates or changes to Cosmos. And that was my default definition. I created that, and I also assigned that role to me and my local CLI account. Now I can't remember which account I used for that, so that will be interesting. I can't remember if it will run. Okay, I think my local account should be fine for this. So now what we want to do is to write some code that will allow us to go and call those endpoints and get some data out. And here I have get volcanoes for Cosmos. So if we do pass a volcano name, then it will try to go and get the volcano name itself. If we don't pass a volcano name, it will try to go and get all the volcano data. So in order for us to be able to work with Cosmos and not use any secrets, because that's the whole point of the exercise here, we need to do two things. We need to install the Cosmos DB library or SDK, and then we need to install the Azure Identity library that will allow us to create a credential that we will pass into Cosmos. And that's the pattern that all our SDKs for Azure use. You need to create a credential object that you pass in. Now that credential object can come from very many different places, including MSAL. But for now, we're going to use Cosmos and Identity to create a credential and pass them in. So first thing we need to do is go into npm and find the appropriate libraries. npm Cosmos. There you go, I've used it before. So the link is here and it's handy. So we need to use Azure Cosmos. I like, in Visual Studio, in NPM, when you say, when you go to NuGet, it gives you the install script. This doesn't do it, does it?
It's up on the right.
Oh, there you go. It's here. Oh, yeah.
It's up on the right of all of them, right there. NPM.
Nice. Yep. Nice, thank you. See, I'm definitely an NPM newbie. You've done more work with NPM, haven't you, JP?
I guess, yeah. So like doing a bunch of React and Angular stuff. Ugh, I do not like Angular.
I like the sentiment of disgust there. Like, ugh. Okay, so let's see what I did while JP was ranting, because it's always fun. We promised to do some Node.js stuff. So what did I do here while JP was talking and explaining about learning and data structures? Is I added 2 new NPM packages. You can see them here. One is the Cosmos DB and the other one is for identity. And then I went into the code and I imported their namespaces, or I did a TypeScript import for these. So therefore, I have Azure Cosmos and I have a Cosmos client here, which we will use in a second. And down here, I'm importing the namespaces from the Azure identity, and then we will need to create a credential for that to work. Now, if we go back into the example here in the NPM, you'll see a couple of examples. We've done this. We need an endpoint, so let's go and add our endpoint, and we're not going to use a key. Remember, we said we want to avoid having any secrets in our code. So here, we're going to add this in our code. And that's our endpoint, which is not a valid endpoint. So let's go and get our endpoint from root. That's our endpoint here without the port. You don't need a port for that. So here,
in fact, you definitely don't need a port, and you definitely don't need a trailing slash. And I'll tell you why later.
Oh, did it break your code somewhere?
It did, and yeah, it does, because the resource doesn't work. Because one of the resources, the resource that the token is requested for. So when Azure AD has in V1, an older Azure AD, there's a concept called the resource, and that's the thing you're trying to access, different from a scope today.
Yep.
And the correct resources for Cosmos do not have a port and do not have a trailing slash. And if you have either one of those, it will blow up and not allow you to. It will blow up and not work. So
that is a scary proposition.
Yeah, I found that out earlier. Yeah, it's not.
Damn.
It's definitely a pain. So
okay, so now that we have that, we need to instantiate a client and then be able to pass around. So let's do that. And we also need the credential. So I need to duplicate this and then search for Azure Identity, so we can see an example somewhere. Identity credential. So what am I doing here? What I am doing here is I'm actually creating a new credential, which we will need to pass to the Cosmos client. And we're using the chain token credential rather than the default one, because I like to be explicit about where my credentials are coming from. The default one will try every permutation under the sun, or iteration under the sun, including environmental variables. Please don't do that. Don't put client credentials in there. But I like the fact that here I'm using either the Azure CLI credentials, which I think I'm gonna stop there for now and see if I have my proper. Let's go and check that. Let's check the AZ CLI, is it AZ account? So do I even have an account? Okay, so I am signed in with a service principal, which is nice. That's the account I'm going to use, because this is the one we have configured against our Cosmos. This specific service principal ID is the one that can actually, or name, this ID here is the one that has the appropriate RBAC permissions, resource-based access control. Thank you, Mr. Extremely. He or she, it's he probably, because it's Mr. Extremely, says that we have a nice stream. We appreciate the feedback. Let us know if you want to see more of us ranting about data structures and RBAC. Ah, God. Okay, back to the code. Eventually, we'll have this up running at some point, but we'll make it happen today, I promise. So right now, we do have everything we need to wire up our Cosmos client. So I added my credentials, so I'm instantiating my client credential here, and using TypeScript actually helps with IntelliCode or IntelliSense. And then it is IntelliSense, we're not using IntelliCode. And then I am actually using that credential and my endpoint to spin up a Cosmos client. Now, Cosmos client has two constructors. One is you pass the direct connection string, or you can create a Cosmos client options object and then pass it in. And we're using that because the Azure AD component, it's only supported in there. Passing the credentials needs to go via the bug. Now, if you type, so if you say comma key, it will expect the actual Cosmos DB key, and we don't want to use a key. So there's a new property that was added in the library recently called Aad Credentials. I know this is stupid, because when I reached out and was looking for it the first time, I had to reach out to the team. I was like, I can't find it anywhere. And these guys were, you know what? It's this property here. So latest library supports it. And here we're passing the credential that we just created up above. So line 14, we pass it in here, and that's it. That is our Cosmos client. So technically now we can go and write some code to query for our data. And the way to do that, let's go back to the browser and let's go and look at this. We have it here. There is a way to query stuff. So let's go query documents. And we're going to use a query, I suppose. Here we can use this format, I guess, and then return the objects back. Dun, 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 dun. And we have, let's see, our database contains a volcano list, I think, which is our database. And then for that's our database is volcanoes. And then the volcano list is the container. So let's go and write our query. Let's go and write our query. Dun, 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 dun. So I'm going to create a function for this because I like to keep it clean. I don't want to put it inside my method. So for that to work, let's go and create a new method. We'll call it. Do you guys like semicolons at the end of your code? I don't know, man. It's weird. Okay, I like it. I am a .NET developer. I think half the documentation uses semicolons, some doesn't. I don't know, JP. What do you feel about semicolons in JavaScript? He's there.
No, I mean, I don't. No, there'd be. I can't use it without semicolons because it doesn't make sense to me without it. So
I know.
Yeah.
So this is our method, and since this is a TypeScript method, we can also declare what the return will be, what the return type will be, an array. Now we don't really have a strongly typed object for our volcano, so I'll go with any. Some people may cringe about that, but I like it. What does not like here? You know, I think it's because we're not returning. Okay. Function whose declared type is neither nor must return a value. Okay, we'll return a value. That's fine. Take it easy, man. TypeScript is super aggressive, right? Try catch. I love the fact that it provides you with that. So we need a variable to hold our data. We'll call it data. Why not? Any. And now we need a container. So const container equals Cosmos client, right? Then here we need a database, and then we'll pass the name, hard code in here. Let me know what you think. Volcano list is our database, and then volcanoes is our container. So we're grabbing our container here. It's volcanoes or volcano. Did I call it volcanoes or volcano? I can't remember now. Well done, Chris. Not remembering your volcano list. Volcanoes. Okay, there we are. Volcanoes. There. Okay. Down. Volcanoes. And semicolon. I told you I like them. So now that we have the container, all we need to do is call the query for us. And because we're getting everything on this one, we'll do const results equals container dot items dot read. Do you know, like IntelliCode? I mean, can you imagine working without IntelliSense with all that? And then there's a fetch all. Now, I have to say, this is not an efficient way to query your Cosmos. So you have a lot of data, then that becomes a bit of an issue. And I think the Volcano data list has 1,500 items, so that's a slow query. Just to make things easy, we're gonna just iterate over them and grab the first 10. And there's no, like, I miss link here, right? Link is amazing. You just say, get me the first 10. So there might be a better way of doing it in TypeScript, I don't know. But we'll use a while for that. Because I am data. So we're gonna use the data and push our, you know what? It needs to be an array, isn't it? Let's instantiate array. So now we can actually do push. Ha! It knows about that now. Check that out. So results dot, I think it's resources, and then just index it. And let's not forget to, oh, that's a good question. How do you increment your array? Do you do index plus equals 1? Do you do index plus plus, or do you do index equals index plus 1? Let us know in the comments, because there was a tweet about that and people were a little bit divided. JP, how do you do it?
People were divided over that? That seems like the most arcane thing to spend any time talking about.
It's almost as good as fighting over.
Do you put curly braces on the same line or on the next line? I mean, who cares?
But I mean, there was a debate, right? I'm just saying.
But what was the debate? I mean, honestly, some of these debates kind of make me feel like there's just too much food, right? Like, if we had to go out and hunt our food every day, I tell you what, we'd get our work done and move on. We wouldn't sit around wondering, like, should I use index plus plus or index plus equals or index equals index plus 1? Like,
okay.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's a readability aspect of it. Maybe the readability makes it better, but that seems like it's such a common thing that, it's just so common that I just don't. I mean, there's far more esoteric, hard to understand code here, just even on the screen right now, right? Than there is in index plus plus, right? Like, like what a weight, what is an await? What's a promise? What is an arrow function? All those sorts of things that we use every day. People are like, but I don't know. Sorry, I'm just I can't believe that.
I feel you.
I can totally believe that people on Twitter were debating, and I'm sure people were being completely unreasonable about their opinions too. But anyway, it just seems kind of silly. So
I feel you, my friend. So here,
and too, like what Vicious is saying, it honestly probably doesn't even matter what you do, because the compiler is going to end up catching it and putting it into the most efficient instructions anyway. So, might be kind of neat to go look at that too. I seem to remember there was a website where you could write some C# or some .NET, and it would give you the IL for it, and you could just do it all in the browser. You don't have to download anything. So
nice. Can you imagine that? Does it give you the binary as well? just throw some binary into your PC and see what happens. All right. Okay. So we are almost done. Obviously, he doesn't like the wait here. The code doesn't like the wait because we haven't declared the method as async. So easy way to fix it is just saying async, and that's it. Async arrow function, and now we can do async await. I mean, this is brilliant. Being able to do async await in JavaScript via TypeScript, it's amazing. Intake is saying compiler explorer. Not sure it supports C#. JP, do you know? Is that the website that you're talking about?
No, I don't think that was the one.
You don't think that
would be
the one, right?
I don't think that was the one.
Okay.
But it saves you from having to download like IL Spy or one of those,
Yes.
Let's see. Let me see if compiler explorer. That's C++. Let's see.
Cannot get Cosmos. How did I name? It's Volcano. I'm a Muppet. Okay, so it's called Volcanoes. Okay, let's go and quit it. I'm actually running the app while you're looking for that. What I've done is I spun up the app, and now, an empty array. What happened there? Something went wrong.
Do you have your console up so we can see?
No, I'm a stupid. I put the code in the wrong place. It's a me error. It's a Christos error. Not I didn't pass a name, so it wasn't able to get the data because I put the code in the path that said if you provide a name, I'll go and look for it. Okay, there you go. It's running now. So let's go and see if it works. Oh, something's happening. Yes! The data is here, my friend. I mean, it's ugly. It's just raw JSON, but
it was Sharp Lab. That's what I was looking for.
Oh, I heard of that. Is that not like an ancient piece of software? I don't know. Is that still running around? Is that available? Does that work? Sharp Lab?
Let's see here. Anyway, well, that's cool. So you got connected, right? Just using your service principal or CLI or whatever.
Exactly. So if I were to sign out from my Azure CLI, then this code will fail because it cannot connect. That means that if I push this code anywhere on Azure, it will also run as long as I have the managed identity configured and set up correctly. Now, the next thing I wanted to do on this one is to secure the endpoint using Azure AD, right? Because anyone can call this one now, but ideally we want somebody to pass in a token and for us to be able to use that token to validate that they have the right scopes, that it has been issued for this specific resource, and then to allow them to access that. For that, we're going to speed things up because we only have 25 minutes, and this code is technically has been written for us by our team. So if we jump into our sample, I thought I had it open somewhere here, but I don't. Let me see if it's in a different browser window. Is it? It is not. I think I closed it down. Yeah, so let's find it again. So it should be MSAL nodes for, on behalf of, and then this sample has two components. It has a web app and a web API. And if you're wondering how I got there, we have all the samples for Angular and then, sorry, not Angular, for Node. So here, and then underneath there's an on behalf of, and in here, we have an example of how to have a web app built with Node.js. So it's a server-side app that allows you to go and acquire a token, assign in users, and then get an access token to call the API. And the API is doing a couple of things. One is checking for the token, it validates the token, and then it checks for that token in the method. So let's go and do that. What do we need? We need a couple of packages. So let's go and see which ones are here. It has JSON web, and we don't need MSAL. Now, we talked about that, JP, right? It was the MSAL does not do token validation, correct? So we need to rely on different libraries for that. Am I right or am I right? For Node.
That's correct. MSAL does not do token validation. MSAL is a token getter, and that's it.
I would love for MSAL to be able to do that, by the way. But
well, I think the problem is that when you think about if you think about how you have to put things in, you got to authenticate one direction.
Yep.
And then you've got to authorize to go off and do other things. And MSAL is really good at the second half and not good at all at the first half. And a lot of times that's because, like, in .NET, it's relatively easy because in .NET, there's ASP.NET, and ASP.NET authorization and authentication is going to handle validating tokens like JWT bearer. And I don't know this for certain, but my strong assumption would be that an extremely high percentage of .NET projects use ASP.NET. They don't use an alternate web server. And so that's why we have things like Microsoft Identity.web that deal with configuring ASP.NET and then also setting up MSAL. Because there is a bit of a play where the authorization code that comes back needs to be redeemed by MSAL, and so there's a little bit of work that goes on in between the two of those.
Yep.
The issue with other languages is just that there is not nearly as much sort of coalescing to a single or even a short list of web servers. So, Java, there's four, like what, 3 or 4 main big ones and a new one. There was a newer one my buddy was telling me about the other day.
Oh, there is one? Nice. Maybe we should talk about it.
I can't remember what it's called, but there's a new Java web server. I don't know how new it is, but there's a newer Java web server that seems to be, that's coming around.
Mainstream. Okay.
And so I kind of feel like on some level it would be exceedingly difficult for us to figure out what do you do for configuring all those other things, because you think, well, once I validate an incoming token, I may have to write a cookie, I may have to set session, I may have to do all this stuff, and all that sort of stuff is set by something else. So
okay.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, MSAL does not validate tokens.
Just making sure, because if people are asking why are we using that, then that's the reason why. So the sample that you have here in the samples actually uses MSAL to go and acquire a token for graph. So in order for the API to call a downstream API, i.e. graph, on your behalf, but it does not use MSAL to validate the token, right? So for that, we're going to use the 2 other libraries that are here, JSON Web Token and JWK RSA. One is for acquiring the signing keys, and the other one is to using the signing keys to verify. So all that is handled by those 2 open source libraries. So we're just going to copy paste the code. Let's go here in our code sample, and then let's go into our index. Let's add them as well. So somewhere up here, let me close this one. Let's put them over here. JWKS client doesn't like that. What is the problem? Add missing function declaration. JWKS. Oh, did I miss something? Let's see. Oh yeah, we forgot those 2. We forgot our imports. And that problem now should be resolved, and we need a config. That config is down here. Okay. I don't think we need the secret, but let's find out. Yeah, it does need the secret, so we're good. The client ID is for our API. So if we go back into our portal, we go into Azure Active Directory. We go into our app registrations, and I'm using my MSDN tenant because I want to make sure I have full control of my Azure AD and I can get the permissions I need. And sometimes the Microsoft tenant does not allow you to do that. So if you don't have one, if you don't have a test tenant, make sure you acquire one. If you don't have an MSDN license, obviously, then for Azure AD, you can get a test tenant here. So Microsoft, if I can type 365 developer program. JP, do you have the URL handy for AKE? Or if you don't, then I am good.
Yeah, I got it. Go ahead. Go back to what you're doing.
Okay, got it. The config. So, I need to copy my app permission. So I think I'm using MSAL Node MSAL API. So I'm gonna copy the application ID. I think that's all we need here. You know what? No, we don't need it because we're not instantiating an MSAL client. So secret will stay empty for now. We'll use it later on for the graph stuff if we ever get around to do that. So technically now we have everything we need. We have the validation options, request a client ID, require client ID, and authority, which we built through here. And yes, good thing I noticed that. That's the wrong authority. I need to go back and copy my tenant ID. And that's my directory, tenant ID. Add it here. I think that's all we need. And now if we run, oh no, we need one more thing. We need to validate JOT or JWT. If you want to see JP triggered, just say that. And now for our volcanoes, we first need to validate the incoming token before we even process the request. So let's see this in action. Is it going to work? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, we have two problems. Public key that, oh yes. Yes, abort. I think there's an issue here with key dot get public key. That API is changed. Hence why TypeScript rocks. It actually saves your bacon. I think it's a method as well. So it actually saves your bacon by doing that. Crucial Ori, hello, I just joined. I see that you guys are working with JWT auth, but can you quickly clue me into what you're doing, please? Oh yeah, we're building a Node.js API that calls into Cosmos to pull some data using the Azure identity. So we don't have any credentials over here. Just a quick recap on how we did this. We use two libraries. We use the Cosmos client and we use the Azure identity library. We create a credential here and then we create a Cosmos client and we pass those credentials. Those credentials are using the Azure CLI account that we have signed in here. So as you can see here, we're using a specific account that has read-only permissions to our Cosmos database. And in our code, we use that information to create a Cosmos client. And further down, we have a method called getCosmosData that allows you to use the Cosmos client to get a number of items. In this instance, we're going for the first 10 items in the list. I don't want to launch anything. And in our endpoint here, you see that if we don't pass a volcano name, it will try to go and get all the volcanoes that we have, or at least the 10 ones. The important bit here is that all this is done without any secrets. So we don't have any keys or any specific secret that needs to be used to access Cosmos. It's the current account, and when you're running in production, you manage identity that uses those permissions. You can see the permissions that we set through RBAC here, and there's a blog post that we will link on our YouTube channel. So right below, you'll be able to see how we build this. But in effect, we have a set of predefined permissions for our account, and therefore it cannot write, it can only read the Cosmos data. And right now, we want also to make sure that anyone who calls this API has the right permissions from Azure AD. So you need to have a token in order for that to work. What happens if a user closes his session and comes back? If you have already authenticated, then your I think your ID token and access tokens will be in your browser, depending on how you configure your authentication, your client. So they could be in the cache or they might be lost depending on how that's configured. But if you come back and you're already authenticated, you should be able to access the data again. But that's in the front end. This is the API, right? So the API is running behind the scenes. So right now we don't even have a front end to call this API. We're probably going to use Postman as the workaround for this thing. Okay, let's run it now because I think we solved the issues that we had with that specific thing. And thanks to TypeScript for helping me out. Let's see, now that's running on port 8000. I'm gonna call it just to get our 403, I think. Or no, it will be a 401, right? Because we're not authenticated. Unauthorized. Damn. Okay, let's fire up Postman. And let's go and get a token. Get me the token. And for that to work, we need a client. And I think I already have a client called Node API client. So I'm not going to create it from scratch, but I think we may need to add some secrets. I think I have it here. Is it volcano or volcanoes? I think it's volcanoes, isn't it? Volcanoes, yes. Send. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. It should be port 8000. So let's send it. No response. What the?
It's not HTTPS.
Ah, yes, thank you. I would have worked it out eventually. Thank you, JP.
Well, we have 11 minutes, so.
403. Yeah, thank you. Let's speed it up. So we need to go and get a token. And for that to work, I need my application ID. So I need to put them side by side now so we can move quickly on this one. So I need my, that's not a token. So down here, Node.js client. I'm thinking that's right. I need to double check. Is that client ID? Let's replace this with the right one. Is that the same? Okay. Directory is E801. E801, so that's fine. Secret map probably is the same, and I think the API is the same. Access as, no, is that the one? Oh, can't remember now. What is the scope here? Access as Cosmos, so 4E67.
You can click one of those scopes and get the scope
Yeah,
value.
I don't think it's the same. I think it's a different.
So I just take it out of there and put it in. Just put it in there in your scope.
That's a good point. Just remove these ones or add a new one.
No. Just copy that scope out. The one that you need to call. Is that the scope that your app is checking for?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
it's okay. I'll find it. Just first, let's confirm that we have the. Went too far out. App registration. So the MSAL 416, is that the, okay. No, interesting. Maybe I use a different tunnel for that. Okay, so let's see what I want to do. It's okay, we got plenty of time. I'll do it. 9 minutes, more than enough time. So the API is running under that. So we know that I've configured the API to use this information. And then under expose an API, there is, okay, let's add a new scope. Let's say access Cosmos data. So we're creating a new permission that we will assign to our client app so you can access the data. And then I think it's this one. Okay. And then let's paste it here for the scope. And then in our client,
you don't have to configure the client.
That's a good point. You don't have to configure the client. So all I need to do now is, okay, go and grab a token. Okay, I was looking in the wrong place. Do I have caps lock? Yes. Yeah, we'll accept that. So we're consenting. What?
Probably a bad secret.
Yeah, you're right. That's a very good point. God damn.
Was it the whole secret? Open the console and look. See what failed. Is it a bad redirect URI or?
It should be the last one, right? Invalid client secret.
Yeah.
Done.
No. Maybe there was an extra.
The client ID
an extra character.
Proceed.
Yeah, something like a hidden carriage return or something.
Sending. Just thinking about it. Is my application running? Are we running? Getting all the data. Okay. Did we get a response?
It's at the bottom, down there.
Down here? Where?
You gotta like pull that, like drag it up.
Or
there you go.
Okay, it works. But there's one more thing, and we have 3 minutes, so I need to very quickly say that the current code does not check for scopes, right? So if I close this one and if I maximize this, you'll notice that it validates the token but doesn't check for the right scope. So it was not the permissions. Thank you for checking Crucial. So there is a nice method that I put together to validate the token in Node. Validate for the scope. If I remember correctly, did I? Yes, there you go. So here, I have it handy in my notes. Down here, you can add a function called confirm request has the right scopes. And I need to have to pass the access token. No, I have an access token somewhere at the very top. Okay, so something like that. Let access token as a string. And what this will do, in effect, is it will look for, I mean, it doesn't know what this is now, but it will look into the scopes, and then it will iterate through the scopes or the claims. And then once it finds the scope, it needs to make sure that there's a valid scope there, and then the scope can be declared as a constant at the very top. So we can say const scope equals access Cosmos data, if I remember correctly, but that will be the whole gist of it. And then in the method, in our actual method here, that we get the data, what we need to do first and foremost is verify, is it validate? Verify, what did I say? Verify, confirm, okay. Couldn't even remember. I'm using, so confirm has the right scope, and if true, then do something, otherwise don't do anything and return a 403 again. So there it is, at 10 o'clock at the top of the hour. I'm going to post this code, so it is available to you. You can go and see that. I'm going to write a blog post about how to implement that. In effect, what we built today is a Node.js API, could be an app as well if you wanted to, that calls into Cosmos without using any secrets. It uses the Azure Identity SDK to call into Cosmos without any secrets, with read-only permissions, so it can't do anything else. And we did all that in less than an hour. Most of the time we spent chatting. Thank you very much for joining us today. There is gonna be an IT Pro show tomorrow. I think we're gonna be focusing on metrics. Oh, Cesar Fritz is just rating us now. Ah, man. Thanks for joining us. Back. Join us tomorrow, 8 a.m. or Friday.
We'll see you on the other side. Later, everybody.
Send us your questions. Bye.